Black CEO mistaken for staff at her own resort moments. Later, she gave everyone a raise. "Ma'am, can you clean this up, please?" The voice came from a man in a linen suit, gesturing toward a spill of iced coffee near the resort bar. His tone was polite, but his eyes said something else: ownership, dismissal, habit. The woman he spoke to, Elena Carter, paused, napkin in hand, not because she was offended, but because it was almost funny how predictable this moment was. Before we continue, where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. And if you believe in dignity and justice, hit like and subscribe. These stories spark change. And we are glad you are here. Now, back to Elena. It was 10:14 a.m., coastal breeze whispering through the open arches of the Horizon Palm Resort, one of the most exclusive destinations in Florida. Elena had designed every inch of it: the curved balconies, the pale stone floors, even the quiet playlist humming through hidden speakers. But this morning, she walked in without announcement, wearing simple jeans, white sneakers, and a soft beige shirt. She looked like any guest, or maybe, in some people's eyes, someone who worked here. The man in the linen suit waited, tapping his gold watch. "Well, it is dripping," he smiled, the kind of smile that assumed compliance. Behind him, two other guests watched, amused. Elena bent down, lifted the napkin, and wiped the counter with one smooth motion. The air shifted slightly, not submission, but composure. Her posture never broke. Her silence was sharper than any retort. Across the lobby, a junior staff member froze mid-step. He recognized her. His mouth parted slightly, eyes wide, but fear glued him still. He whispered to another employee, "That is her." The man in the suit chuckled. "Good help is hard to find these days." His wife laughed softly, unaware of the small storm forming inside the marble walls. Elena straightened up. "It is cleaned," she said evenly, voice calm, almost soothing. Then she turned to the barista and added, "Could you bring them a fresh cup?" "On me." The barista hesitated, then nodded quickly. To anyone else, it looked like kindness. To Elena, it was control, the quiet kind that reshapes the room without raising a single decibel. As the couple returned to their seats, a light breeze carried the faint scent of salt and citrus through the lobby. Elena stood there for a moment, looking out toward the horizon line, where the sea met the sky like two equal halves. She had seen this play before. At 26, she had been mistaken for housekeeping in her own pilot hotel. At 33, for an assistant at her own board meeting. The script rarely changed, only the setting. This time, though, there would be no confrontation, no shouting, no revenge, just revelation. Because what they did not know, what they could not see, was that the woman holding that napkin did not work for the resort. She was the resort. The couple returned to their seats, whispering to each other, still unaware of what had just shifted in that quiet space. Elena watched them go, then walked toward the far end of the lobby where sunlight spilled through tall glass doors. The reflection of the sea shimmered on the marble floor. Everything looked calm. But beneath that calm, something small and familiar pressed against her chest, a pulse she knew too well. Her assistant's voice echoed softly through the earpiece tucked under her hair. "All systems running, Miss Carter. The staff rotation reports will update in 10 minutes. "Thank you, Maya," she replied. "Do not interfere yet. Just observe." "Yes, ma'am." Elena placed her tablet on the counter near the concierge desk. The manager on duty, Thomas Reynolds, was standing nearby, giving instructions to a new hire, a young woman in a crisp uniform. When he saw Elena, his expression shifted from courtesy to mild confusion. "Ma'am, guests are not allowed behind this desk," he said. His tone was firm, managerial. "If you need something, one of my associates will help you." Elena's voice was gentle. "I just needed to check a booking record." Thomas shook his head. "That is staff access only." The new hire hesitated, glancing at Elena, then back at him. "Sir, I think—" He cut her off sharply. "I said staff only." For a moment, no one moved. Then Elena smiled. "Understood," she said, stepping back. She picked up her tablet and walked away without a word. Thomas watched her go, then muttered to the young employee, "Some people think wearing confidence makes them in charge." The girl looked down, uneasy. At the far end of the lobby, Elena stopped near a row of orchids. She had chosen them herself, white phalaenopsis, standing tall, quiet, resilient. She remembered planting the first one with her own hands during construction 3 years ago. Back then, The resort was just steel and dust, and people doubted she could build something world-class in a town that had never seen a black woman sign a contract worth $50 million. She smiled at the memory, a small, private smile. Every petal in that lobby was proof that she had. Behind her, voices rose again. Thomas was reprimanding the new hire for not speaking up faster, for hesitating in front of a random guest. The young woman's voice cracked as she apologized. Elena turned slightly, watching them from a distance. The scene was small, almost invisible, but she knew what it meant. Leadership had cracks, and those cracks revealed more than any report could. Her phone buzzed once. A message from Maya. Internal note. 3 staff interactions recorded. 2 respectful. 1 potential bias flag. Elena typed back, "Keep tracking. Focus on tone, not just words." She closed the message and leaned against a marble column, letting the rhythm of the place settle. The laughter from the couple had faded. The music hummed like a low heartbeat. This was why she visited unannounced to see what the numbers never showed. Thomas walked past again, still carrying the brittle energy of someone who believed authority was volume. As he passed Elena, he nodded stiffly. "Enjoy your stay, ma'am." Elena's eyes met his. "I intend to," she said softly. He walked off without realizing that the guest he had just dismissed would, within the hour, be the one reviewing his leadership record. Elena took a slow breath and looked toward the reception windows where the horizon stretched open and blue. She whispered to herself, almost like a promise, "Patience first, then truth." And with that, she turned and walked toward the courtyard cafe where the next test was already waiting. The cafe terrace opened onto the ocean, framed by palm trees that swayed gently in the morning breeze. Guests filled the tables, sipping lattes and scrolling through their phones, unaware that the woman stepping into the sunlight owned every chair, every plate, every inch of that view. Elena Carter moved quietly, greeting no one, taking a seat near the edge of the patio where the horizon stretched wide and endless. A young waiter hurried over, a little flustered, his name tag reading, "Daniel." He smiled politely but did not make eye contact. "Good morning, ma'am. Breakfast is for registered guests only. Are you staying with us?" Elena looked up, calm and steady. "Yes," she said. "I am." He nodded, still uncertain. "Room number, please?" Before she could answer, another voice cut through the calm, older, sharper. "Daniel, make sure non-guests stay outside the service area." The speaker was a woman in her 40s wearing a navy blazer and a headset. Her badge read, "Operations Supervisor, Linda Chase." She glanced at Elena, then at Daniel. "She looks like one of the event staff, probably here early for setup." Daniel hesitated. "She said she is staying here." Linda crossed her arms. "Then she can show proof. We cannot just let anyone wander in because they say so." Elena's expression did not change. She had faced worse boardrooms, colder than this tone, investors who spoke to her as if they were doing her a favor. She met Linda's eyes and said evenly, "Coffee, please. Black. Thank you." Linda frowned. "I am sorry, ma'am, but this section is reserved for guests only." At a nearby table, a family fell silent. They could feel the air tighten, though no one had raised a voice. Elena spoke again, her tone gentle but unshakable. "You keep saying guests. You might want to check your definition." Linda exhaled, already irritated. "If you continue to argue, I will have to ask security to escort you out." The waiter looked uncomfortable. "Miss Chase, maybe." She stopped him with a glare. "No maybes. Policy is policy." Elena leaned back slightly, her gaze steady. "And what policy is that?" "The one that keeps this place professional," Linda said. "We cannot have unverified individuals sitting in the main guest area." Elena's voice lowered, softer but sharper. "Unverified individuals." She repeated the phrase slowly, like tasting the weight of it. The young waiter stepped forward, voice trembling. "Ma'am, I can bring your coffee anyway. It is not a problem." Linda turned on him. "Daniel, that is an order violation." End of ka. He froze, caught between his conscience and his paycheck. Elena saw the fear in his face and almost smiled. She remembered being 20, waiting tables just like this, hearing managers talk about professional image as if it had a skin tone. "Do not worry," she said quietly to Daniel. "I have been where you are." Linda folded her arms. "Excuse me?" Elena stood, her chair sliding back with a soft scrape against the tile. "You will not need to call security," she said. "I have my own way of confirming identity." Linda scoffed. "And what would that be?" Elena pulled out her phone and made a single call. Her assistant's voice came through instantly. Miss Carter? Maya. Please activate Internal Protocol 3. Cafe Division. Timestamp 10:37 a.m. I want full audio capture of staff interactions. Yes, ma'am. Recording now. The supervisor blinked. What is this? Elena's eyes never left her. Accountability, she said softly. For a moment, only the ocean spoke, the sound of waves brushing against stone. Guests glanced over, sensing something unfold but not daring to interrupt. Elena sat back down, calm, unbothered. Now, she said to Daniel, about that coffee. He nodded quickly, relief and respect blending across his face. Right away, ma'am. As he walked away, Linda still stood frozen, her authority thinning by the second. Elena looked toward the sea again. Some people see service as weakness, she murmured. But the strongest thing you can do is stay kind when someone mistakes it for your place. The wind carried her words across the terrace, soft but heavy like truth, choosing its moment to speak. The sound of porcelain touched the air as Daniel returned with a fresh cup of coffee balanced on a silver tray. He set it down carefully in front of Elena. Here you go, ma'am, he said softly. His hands trembled just enough for her to notice. She gave him a warm nod. Thank you, Daniel. Linda Chase, the operations supervisor, stood a few steps away, still trying to decide whether to press her authority or retreat. Her radio crackled once, a reminder of her position. Pride held her in place. Ma'am, I hope you understand. We have standards here, she said. The words stiff, meant to sound professional but landing like judgment. Elena stirred her coffee once, slowly. I am aware, she replied. I wrote them. Linda frowned. I am sorry. Elena looked up from the cup, her expression calm but deliberate. The standards, the policies, the tone. I created them. For a heartbeat, silence took the terrace. Even the ocean seemed to pause. Linda blinked, unsure if she had heard correctly. Daniel froze mid-step, eyes wide. Elena did not elaborate. She simply took a sip and set the cup back on its saucer. The movement was unhurried, graceful, the kind that filled a space without raising a single voice. Linda cleared her throat. If you are suggesting you work here, then please speak with human resources. I have a schedule to maintain. Elena's phone buzzed once on the table. A message from Maya appeared on the screen. Audio capture confirmed. Bias flag level 2. Recommend observation only for now. She typed back. Understood. Continue recording. Linda noticed the exchange and straightened. You cannot record staff without authorization, she said sharply. Elena met her gaze, voice even. I can when I am the authorization. That answer hit harder than volume ever could. A few guests nearby exchanged looks. Someone whispered, Is she serious? Elena pushed her chair back, stood up, and glanced toward Daniel. Keep doing your job, she said softly. The way you served just now, that is what hospitality should look like. Daniel nodded, his voice barely a whisper. Yes, ma'am. Linda's face flushed. Look, I am just doing my job. We cannot have guests or strangers interrupting service. If you truly belong here, I will need proof. Elena stepped closer, not intimidating, just steady. Proof, she repeated. That word is doing a lot of work for you today. I am following procedure, Linda insisted. Elena smiled faintly. And I am following purpose. The young waiter returned with a check folder, unsure what else to do. Elena reached for it, placed her card inside, and slid it back toward him. It was a matte black card embossed with the Horizon Palm insignia and her full name. Daniel hesitated, reading it twice. His mouth opened, then closed again. Linda leaned over his shoulder. The color drained from her face. Elena spoke before either could find words. Do not worry, she said quietly. You will not lose your job for this. But after today, you may understand it differently. Her phone buzzed again. Maya's voice came through the earpiece. Miss Carter, I have a few guests watching from the upper deck. Should I step in? No, Elena said. Let them watch. Some lessons need an audience. The supervisor tried to recover. If you are truly who you say you are, then perhaps we can schedule a proper meeting to clarify. Elena stopped her with a raised hand. No meetings, no apologies, just reflection. You cannot train kindness with a handbook, Linda. You teach it by example. Yeah. The breeze lifted through the terrace again, carrying her words across the quiet tables. She looked back at the ocean, sunlight shimmering over the water. "Do you hear that?" she asked softly. "That is what dignity sounds like, steady, constant, impossible to silence." For the first time, Linda said nothing. Daniel stood still beside her, holding the untouched bill folder like proof that humility could be heavier than any reprimand. Elena turned away, walking toward the open lobby doors. Each step was calm, measured, unhurried, an answer written in motion. She did not need to raise her voice. The room already knew who she was. As Elena stepped back inside the main lobby, the hum of conversation returned like a current. The soft jazz played on. The scent of coconut oil and polished marble filled the air. Guests moved around her unaware that the woman they had mistaken for staff just minutes earlier was the reason this resort existed at all. She walked toward the grand staircase where sunlight poured through the skylight in golden ribbons, cutting the air into patterns of warmth and glass. Her phone vibrated again. Maya's voice came through the earpiece, calm but alert. "Miss Carter, we are receiving internal pings. It looks like the floor manager has reported a guest disturbance. Security has been dispatched." Elena stopped walking. "Let them come," she said softly. "We do not stop storms by running from them." Understood," Maya replied. Across the lobby, two security guards approached, one older, one young, both polite but uncertain. Their navy uniforms looked crisp, their posture professional. The older one spoke first. "Good morning, ma'am. We were told there was a report of a possible policy issue here." Elena gave a small nod. "Yes, the issue is policy itself." They exchanged quick looks, unsure how to respond. "I am fine," she added, her tone steady. "There is no threat here, only misunderstanding." Before they could answer, Linda Chase appeared behind them, still flushed from the cafe incident. She pointed toward Elena. "This is the guest I was referring to." She refused to provide identification and began recording staff. Elena turned toward her, eyes calm. "I did not record. My system did." Linda frowned. "Your system?" Elena took a slow breath, choosing each word like a measured step. "Yes, the resort's internal monitoring system, the one I designed, the one you just triggered by mistake." The younger guard's eyes widened slightly. The older one's brows furrowed. "I am sorry, ma'am. Are you saying?" "I am saying you are standing in my lobby," Elena replied, "and you are protecting me from my own employees." The words landed like a bell, clear, undeniable. The tension in the room folded into silence. Linda's mouth opened, then shut again. You cannot be serious." Elena's phone buzzed once more. Maya's voice was crisp in her ear. "Protocol 3 confirmed, Miss Carter. Security report logged. The board's compliance feed is live." "Thank you, Maya," Elena said. "Keep it running." The guards stepped back instinctively, their posture shifting from authority to respect. "Ma'am, we had no idea," the older one said. "I know," Elena answered softly. "That is the point." Guests nearby began whispering. Someone murmured, "Is she really the owner?" Another voice replied, "She said her name's Carter, like the resort name." "Oh." Elena turned toward Linda. "You see how fast assumptions move," she said. "Faster than truth, faster than reflection, but they always slow down right before they crash." Linda looked around, her voice small now. "I was only enforcing protocol," Elena nodded. "And I am only reminding you that humanity should come before it." The younger guard cleared his throat. "Do you want us to leave, ma'am?" "Yes," Elena said, "but not because I said so, because you know there is no threat here." "Oh." They both nodded and stepped away, quietly radioing the all clear. Linda stood still, eyes glossy but defiant. "So what now?" Elena looked around the lobby, the guests watching, the staff pretending not to. "Now," she said, "we go back to work, but differently." She turned toward the front desk where Thomas, the manager from earlier, was now standing frozen. Their eyes met briefly, and she could see the recognition dawn on his face. His lips moved silently. "Miss Carter." Elena gave him a single nod, a silent permission to breathe. As she walked toward the elevator, her reflection followed in the marble floor, steady, grounded, unbroken. Maya's voice came through one last time. "Would you like me to prepare the staff memo, ma'am?" "Not yet," Elena said. "First, let them remember how it feels to wonder who they just spoke to." The elevator doors opened. The music swelled softly, and as she stepped inside, The resort held its breath just long enough to realize that dignity had never raised its voice. It had simply walked past them. The elevator doors opened with a quiet chime, releasing Elena onto the executive level. The hallway stretched ahead, lined with modern art and warm amber light. This floor was rarely seen by guests. It was where the resort's real work happened. She walked past framed photos of the grand opening, smiling faces of the very staff who had once believed in her dream. Among them was Thomas, years younger, standing beside her under the banner that read, Horizon Palm Resort, built for everyone. Now, that word everyone echoed differently. Her phone buzzed again. Miss Carter, Maya said through the earpiece. Internal feed shows activity in the staff channel. They are realizing who you are. Elena smiled faintly. That is good. Awareness before action. Yes, ma'am. Would you like to address them directly? Soon, she replied. Let them speak first. Truth shows in what people say before they know they are being heard. She entered her private office overlooking the beach. The walls of glass reflected the morning light across her desk, where papers lay untouched since her last visit. She set her phone down and watched the waves roll against the shore, steady and endless. For a moment, she allowed herself to breathe, not the controlled kind of breathing that came with leadership, but the slow, real kind that reminded her she was human before she was powerful. She remembered the early days nights spent reviewing contracts no one thought she could sign, investors asking to speak to the real owner, builders second-guessing her decisions until she started showing up with hard hats and blueprints herself. The memories did not hurt anymore. They had turned into quiet armor. A soft knock interrupted her thoughts. The door opened slightly, and Thomas Reynolds stepped in, holding his cap in both hands. He looked nothing like the confident manager from earlier. Miss Carter, he began carefully, I did not realize you were on property. Elena gestured for him to come in. Clearly, he swallowed hard. If I had known, things would have been different. That is exactly what concerns me, she said. Why should knowing change the way you treat anyone who walks through those doors? Thomas's shoulders slumped. You are right. I take full responsibility. It was not intentional. Neither was the hurt, she interrupted softly. But it happened. He nodded, eyes fixed on the floor. I will fix it. Whatever you decide. Elena studied him for a moment. Do you remember what I said during training the first year we opened? He hesitated. That hospitality is not a job. It is a mirror. She nodded. And every day we decide what it reflects. He exhaled shakily. I lost sight of that. Then find it again, she said. Because the people you lead will copy you before they ever listen to you. Thomas looked up, guilt softening into gratitude. Thank you for giving me the chance. This is not grace, she said calmly. It is accountability dressed with compassion. Use it well. He nodded and left quietly, closing the door behind him. Elena stood by the window again, watching the horizon burn with sunlight. Her phone buzzed once more. Maya's voice was gentle this time. Miss Carter, would you like me to send a message to the staff lounge? Elena thought for a long moment. Yes. Patch me through to every department. I will speak from here. There was a pause. Then Maya said, You are live in 5 seconds. Elena took a slow breath. Her reflection in the glass looked calm, composed, ready. When the signal light turned green, she spoke not loud, but clear. This is Elena Carter. I am on site today. Some of you met me without realizing it. Some of you saw it and stayed silent. I am not here to punish. I am here to remind you why we built this place to prove that respect should never depend on recognition. Across the property, in kitchens, lounges, and offices, staff members stopped what they were doing. Her voice filled every corner, smooth and steady. Every guest, every worker, every person who enters these doors deserves to feel seen. Today, we will begin again, together. She ended the call. The light turned red, and somewhere below, applause began not loud or forced, but spontaneous, like rain returning after a long, dry season. The applause rose softly at first, a ripple moving through the resort like wind over water. Downstairs, in the cafe, Daniel stopped wiping the counter and just listened. In the housekeeping corridor, 2 employees stood still, holding folded linens, eyes wet but smiling. Even Linda, the operations supervisor, froze mid-step outside the service elevator, her headset buzzing with static. For the first time in her long career, she did not have a single instruction to give. Elena Carter stood by the window of her office, her hand resting lightly on the glass. The sound was faint but real. She could feel the shift, the way a building seemed to breathe differently when truth entered it. Maya's voice returned in her earpiece. "The internal channel is still open, Miss Carter. Staff are responding. Most are sending support messages. A few are apologizing in real time." Elena smiled slightly. "That is a good sign. When people are quiet, they are thinking. When they speak, they are growing." "Yes, ma'am," Maya said softly. "Should I close the feed?" "Not yet," Elena replied. "Let them sit in it for a while. Silence can teach better than a memo." She turned from the window and walked toward the wall where framed photographs told the story of the resort's first-year construction crews, ribbon cuttings, opening night. In one image, she stood beside the very first team she had hired. Thomas was there, so was Linda. Back then, everyone was proud, equal, and new. Somewhere along the line, hierarchy had blurred that vision. She picked up the photograph, studied it, and whispered, "It is not lost, just buried under routine." Her phone buzzed again. "Miss Carter," Maya said. "The board liaison just called. News of your visit has reached them. They would like a brief statement for the corporate page." "Later," Elena said. "This story is not about optics. It is about conscience." She set the photo back and walked out of the office. The elevator ride down was quiet, her reflection flickering across the mirrored walls like a memory of who she had been when this all began. When the doors opened, she stepped into the lobby again. The same marble, the same light, but the air felt different. Conversations were softer, eyes warmer. Even the music had changed somehow, the notes carrying less distance. Linda was waiting near the front desk, her hands clasped, posture rigid with nerves. "Miss Carter," she began quickly, "I want to apologize for—" Elena raised a hand gently. "Apologies are easy. Awareness is harder. What will you do tomorrow when the next person looks like me but does not own the building?" Linda hesitated. "I will do better," she said quietly. "Good," Elena replied, "because that is the only real promotion that matters." Daniel appeared near the bar, still in his apron. He looked nervous but stepped forward anyway. "Ma'am," he said, "I wanted to thank you for not yelling at her, or anyone. Most people would have." Elena smiled kindly. "Yelling is for people who need to prove they are right. I only needed to remember who I am." He nodded, eyes bright. It meant something to see that. "Then carry it with you," she said. "Every table you serve deserves the same calm." He nodded again and returned to work, his movements lighter, more deliberate. Elena walked toward the center of the lobby, where sunlight painted the floor in gold. Guests watched her quietly, some with admiration, others with curiosity. She did not mind either. Respect did not need everyone to understand. It only needed everyone to witness. Maya's voice whispered through the earpiece again. "Miss Carter, would you like me to prepare your departure vehicle?" "Not yet," Elena said. "There is one more thing to do." She walked toward the guest book displayed on the marble counter, opened it to a blank page, and wrote slowly, her handwriting precise and strong. "Legacy is not what you build. It is how you make people feel when they forget your title." She signed her name beneath it. Elena Carter, founder. When she set the pen down, the page glowed faintly in the sunlight, a quiet mark of ownership. Not over property, but over perspective. And somewhere in that stillness, every person watching understood. She had not come to teach them fear. She had come to remind them of grace. The lobby began to breathe again, the rhythm of normal life returning but softer, as if everyone had agreed without words to carry themselves differently. Elena Carter stood near the center, her presence grounding the space like gravity. The staff pretended to resume their duties, but their eyes kept finding her, watching how she moved, how she spoke, how she carried silence like authority. She reached for her phone and tapped once. "Maya," she said, "open the internal system. I want to issue a directive voice only." "Yes, Miss Carter. The channel is open." Her voice filled every speaker across the property again, from the kitchen to the pool deck. "This is not a reprimand," she began, calm and steady. "This is an awakening. Horizon Palm was never built to be perfect. It was built to be human. We will make mistakes, but from this day forward, we will learn from compassion, not from compliance." In the background, workers paused, guests turned their heads, and even the waves seemed to hush. "Anyone who feels unseen, speak. Anyone who feels unheard, come forward. Not to defend yourselves, but to remind us that we can only be better together. She ended the transmission. Maya's voice returned after a beat. Message logged and distributed. Staff responses are positive. Some are asking if you would like to meet them in person. Elena thought for a moment. Yes, she said. Gather everyone in the atrium in 15 minutes. No uniforms, no hierarchy, just people. She placed the phone back into her pocket and began walking toward the glass doors that led to the atrium. The sun had climbed higher now, casting moving patterns on the polished floor. Every reflection carried a piece of her calm. As she approached the wide, open space, small groups of employees began arriving. Some looked hesitant, others hopeful. Thomas was among them, standing near the back. Linda lingered close to the edge, her posture rigid but her expression open. Daniel stood front and center, still in his apron, clutching a notepad nervously. Elena faced them with no microphone, no stage. You do not need to apologize to me, she said. What happened today was not just about a mistake. It was a mirror, and sometimes, when we look in the mirror, we do not like what we see. No one spoke, but heads nodded slowly around the room. Here is what we will do, she continued. By the end of this week, every department will hold a reflection circle. Not a meeting, a circle. You will tell your stories, the moments you felt invisible, the moments you made others feel that way. No titles, no fear, just truth. Daniel's hand went up timidly. Even if it is about management? Especially if it is about management, Elena said. Leadership starts with listening, not defending. A faint murmur moved through the crowd, half relief, half disbelief. Elena stepped closer, her tone softening. And one more thing. Tomorrow, all base-level staff will receive a pay increase, effective immediately. Gasps filled the atrium. Some employees covered their mouths, others blinked, unsure if they had heard right. Linda spoke up hesitant. You are giving everyone a raise? Even after? Yes, Elena interrupted gently. Because value is not given as a reward for perfection. It is a reminder of worth. Maybe if people felt more seen, they would see others more clearly. The room fell quiet again, but it was a new kind of quiet, warm, grateful, alive. Thomas stepped forward, voice low. You have given us more than a paycheck today. Elena nodded. Then give something back. Keep the spirit that built this place alive. That is all I ask. Maya's voice came softly through the earpiece. Ma'am, should I log the announcement as compensation update? Elena smiled faintly. No. Log it as restoration. She looked out across the gathered faces, different ages, accents, and stories all bound by the same lesson. The raise is not the real gift, she said. The real gift is understanding what respect looks like when it finally shows up. Oh. And in that moment, standing beneath the sunlight that filtered through the glass ceiling, every person there felt it how power could sound, like forgiveness, and how leadership, at its best, could feel like healing. The sound that followed was not applause. It was something quieter, deeper, a collective breath. The kind people take when they realize a weight they had carried for years has been quietly lifted. Around the atrium, staff began exchanging looks, some nodding, some smiling, others just standing still, trying to process what had happened. Elena Carter looked at each of them, her calm presence anchoring the room. This raise is not charity, she said, her tone measured but full. It is recognition. You have been the hands and the heartbeat of this place. Today, you are reminded of that. Daniel's eyes shimmered. He whispered to another waiter, No one has ever spoken to us like that. Elena caught the words and smiled. Get used to it, she said gently, because this will not be the last time. Maya's voice came through the earpiece again, almost like a whisper in the wind. Miss Carter, external press just picked up the story. A guest uploaded a clip of your speech from the cafe. It is already circulating online. Elena exhaled softly. Of course it is. Truth tends to travel faster than we expect. Would you like me to respond to the press inquiries? Maya asked. Not yet, Elena said. Let the story breathe. It belongs to more than us now. She turned back to the crowd. For the next few days, there will be noise people talking, writing, speculating. Do not let it distract you. The real change happens here in this room, in how you look at one another tomorrow morning. Her eyes moved slowly across the space, resting on Linda. The woman looked different now, smaller, quieter, stripped of defense. Miss Chase, Elena said, I am not going to fire you. Linda's lips parted. stunned. You are not? No, Elena replied. Because firing, you would only erase the lesson, and I need you to teach it instead. Linda swallowed, tears threatening but held back. I will, she said. You have my word. Good, Elena answered. Then make sure no one here ever forgets what respect looks like. From the back, Thomas stepped forward. Miss Carter, he said, voice steady now, we would like to do something for you. The team, I mean. A gesture. Eberty des. Elena shook her head gently. You already have. You showed up. But still, Thomas insisted, this place exists because you believed we could be better. She looked around the atrium, sunlight catching the faces of the people she had once only seen as numbers on a payroll report. It exists, she said, because all of you made it real. A murmur of agreement swept through the room. A few staff members began clapping softly, not out of protocol, but gratitude. Soon it grew gentle, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. Elena lifted a hand and the sound quieted. Do not thank me, she said. Just live what you learned today. Kindness does not need witnesses, but it deserves consistency. Maya's voice returned, quieter now. Miss Carter, the board is requesting an update on your location. Should I tell them you are staying on property tonight? Elena glanced toward the horizon through the glass wall. Yes, she said after a moment. Tell them I am staying, but not as the owner. Maya paused. As what, ma'am? Elena smiled. As a guest. The message carried through every department within minutes. By evening, the resort staff prepared her suite the same penthouse she had once reserved for visiting executives. But this time, there would be no special treatment, no fanfare, only quiet acknowledgement. As she walked back toward the elevators, employees along the hallway straightened their posture, not out of fear but pride. One housekeeper bowed her head slightly. Elena stopped and said softly, You do not need to bow. Just believe that what you do matters. The woman smiled through tears. It does now. Elena entered the elevator, pressing the button for the top floor. As the doors closed, she caught one last reflection of the atrium below, dozens of people still gathered together, talking, connecting, alive with purpose. It was not the sound of a workplace. It was the sound of a community waking up. And as the elevator began to rise, she whispered to herself, maybe this is how change is supposed to sound. Not loud, not forced, just real. The elevator reached the top floor with a quiet chime. Elena stepped out into the private corridor that led to the penthouse suite, the same one where guests once paid thousands a night just to watch the sunset she had designed. Tonight, the space felt different, not because of the furniture or the view, but because of what she carried inside her. The lights were dim, the air faintly scented with jasmine. She walked to the wide terrace doors and pushed them open. The ocean stretched before her, calm and endless, waves breaking in slow rhythm against the sand. The world below had settled into its evening glow, soft lights in the lobby, the faint hum of conversation drifting up from the pool deck. Her phone buzzed once. Maya's voice came through the earpiece. Miss Carter, everything is stable. Staff morale has risen significantly in the last 2 hours. You are trending on social media under the hashtag #TheOwnerWhoServed. Elena smiled faintly. That is not what I served, she said. I just offered perspective. Maya laughed quietly. Perspective travels faster than coffee, apparently. Elena's gaze stayed fixed on the horizon. Let it. People need to see that power and humility can share the same sentence. She set her phone on the small table beside her and leaned against the railing. The sound of the waves filled the silence. For the first time that day, she allowed herself to feel the exhaustion hiding behind her calm. Not from confrontation, but from carrying grace. Grace, she knew, was heavier than anger. Down below, a small group of staff stood on the beach, still in their uniforms, watching the sea. Daniel was among them, shoes off, pant legs rolled up, standing ankle-deep in the surf. He looked up at the terrace and waved. She raised her hand in return, smiling. A knock sounded behind her. She turned. It was Thomas, holding a tray with 2 cups of tea. May I? He asked quietly. Elena nodded. Of course. He stepped onto the terrace and placed the tray down. I thought you might need this, he said. I do, she admitted. Thank you. They stood side by side for a while, watching the horizon fade into violet. You changed this place today, Thomas said finally. Elena shook her head. No, I just reminded it of what it promised to be. He looked down at the teacup, then back at her. I do not think I will ever forget this day. Good, she said softly, because forgetting is how injustice starts over. He nodded, words caught in his throat. You could have humiliated me, fired all of us. Instead, you chose kindness. Why? Elena looked at him, her expression calm but firm. Because power without grace just becomes another form of cruelty. And I have seen enough of that to know it never builds anything that lasts. The wind lifted her hair slightly. The resort lights shimmered below like tiny constellations. Tomorrow, she said, we begin a full review of staff culture and guest experience. I want you and Linda to lead it together. Thomas hesitated. Linda? After today? Yes, Elena said. Especially after today. Redemption is not theory, it is practice. Let her prove what she has learned. He took a deep breath, then nodded. You have my word. She smiled. I already had it. Now I have your understanding. They drank their tea in silence for a while. The ocean kept speaking in its steady language of repetition and calm. When Thomas left, Elena remained on the terrace, alone again with the night. She looked up at the stars emerging one by one above the dark water and whispered, My parents would have loved this view. She remembered them two dreamers who taught her that kindness was not weakness, and that respect should never have to introduce itself. As the breeze brushed her face, she closed her eyes. For the first time that day, she let herself rest, not as the owner, not as the symbol, but simply as a woman who had done what was right. And somewhere below, in the glow of the resort she built from disbelief, her staff worked quietly into the night, this time not out of fear, but out of pride. Morning came slow, quiet, golden. The first light reached across the ocean and climbed the glass walls of the Horizon Palm Resort, spilling through the terrace doors of Elena's suite. She had slept little, but her rest had been deep, the kind earned, not taken. When she stepped outside, the air was cool and clear, carrying the soft scent of salt and jasmine. Down below, she could already hear movement. The sound of work, but a different kind of work. Lighter, intentional. She dressed simply again, jeans and a white linen shirt, the same way she had the day before. No announcement, no security detail. She walked through the hallways as the resort began to wake. Staff she passed greeted her softly, some smiling, some still shy. A few just placed a hand over their heart. Each gesture said the same thing. We understand now. At the front desk, Linda was already there, reorganizing the guest files by hand. She looked up when she saw Elena, uncertainty flickering across her face. Good morning, Miss Carter. Morning, Linda, Elena said gently. How is the energy this morning? Linda straightened. Different. People are talking to each other, not about shifts or orders, but about stories. That is how culture begins, Elena said. When people speak from truth, not schedule. Linda nodded, eyes softening. I wanted to thank you. Yesterday hurt, but it needed to. Elena studied her for a moment. Then it worked. Linda hesitated. I will do my best to rebuild what I broke. You will not rebuild it, Elena said. You will build it better. As she walked away, she noticed Daniel setting up the morning tables in the cafe. He saw her and grinned. Coffee on the house today, Miss Carter? Elena laughed softly. You are going to get me in trouble with the accountants. He shrugged. Worth it. She took a seat by the same spot where everything had begun the spill, the confusion, the insult that had cracked the silence wide open. Daniel placed a cup in front of her. Steam rose, curling into the sunlight. Black, just the way you like it, he said. Perfect, she replied. As she sipped, guests began filling the terrace. Some recognized her from the video that had gone viral overnight. They smiled discreetly. Some nodded. None interrupted her peace. Respect had replaced curiosity. A group of housekeepers passed nearby, chatting quietly. One of them said, I watched the clip again last night, I cried. Another replied, I did too. It felt like she stood up for all of us. Elena heard it, but did not turn around. The words were not meant for her, they were meant for each other, and that was the point. Her phone buzzed once. Maya's voice carried warmth this time. Miss Carter, the board has reviewed the reports. They have requested that your approach be formalized into a new company policy. They are calling it the Horizon Standard. Elena smiled. A policy for compassion. That is a first. They want to feature your statement in next month's leadership forum, Maya added. You have become a symbol. End of. Elena's voice stayed calm. Symbols fade. Systems last. Make sure this one does. Yes, ma'am. She hung up and looked around the cafe. The same marble tables, the same breeze, but the people different. Awake, kind, accountable. Thomas entered a moment later, clipboard in hand. Good morning, Miss Carter. Staff reflections start at noon. We are calling it Day 1. Elena nodded, smiling. Day 1 sounds right. He hesitated before adding, there is a guest from New York asking to meet you. She said your story reminded her of her own. Elena considered for a moment. Tell her I would love to listen. That is how all stories should start. She stood and looked out toward the water again. The same horizon that had named her dream now shimmered with new meaning. Beneath the rising sun, the resort seemed alive not as a monument to luxury, but as a place where humility had rewritten power. Elena whispered, we are all guests here, really, even the owners. The wind carried her words over the ocean, and for the first time in years, she felt completely at peace, not because justice had shouted, but because dignity had finally spoken loud enough to be heard. The afternoon sun turned the ocean into sheets of liquid gold. Guests drifted between the pool and the lobby, their laughter blending with the rhythm of the waves. The Horizon Palm Resort looked exactly as it always had, immaculate, calm, expensive, but something invisible had shifted. It was in the air, in the way people spoke to each other, in how they paused before reacting. Dignity had quietly become part of the architecture. Elena Carter stood on the upper balcony, watching the life below unfold. She could see Daniel greeting guests at the cafe with his easy smile, Linda walking beside a junior attendant and showing her how to handle a request with patience, and Thomas talking to a group of staff who now listened to him not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Her phone buzzed. Miss Carter, Maya said, the first reflection circle just ended. People cried. People apologized. People promised. It worked. Elena smiled. That is how healing usually sounds messy but real. Yes, ma'am, Maya said. The board also approved the Horizon Standard. It is official now. Elena let out a slow breath. Then it begins. Let them remember what respect looks like when it is written in action, not policy. She hung up and leaned on the railing, eyes tracing the horizon. The light shifted, warm and endless. For a brief moment, she thought of the girl she used to be, the one who waited tables in Atlanta, saving tips in a jar labeled Someday. Back then, she had no idea that someday would look like this. Down below, a small boy chased a red beach ball across the courtyard, his laughter ringing against the marble. He tripped, fell, and a staff member hurried over to help him up. The boy's mother thanked her, calling her by name. No hesitation, no tone of superiority, just gratitude. That small scene, more than anything, told Elena she had done her work well. Thomas appeared behind her, holding a clipboard. Everything is running smoothly, Miss Carter. Would you like to review tomorrow's schedule? Elena turned to him. No schedules today, just life. He smiled. You know, people have started calling yesterday the Day of the Owner. It has become a story. Elena chuckled softly. If it must be called something, let it be the day we remembered each other. He nodded. That sounds better. She looked out again, her tone quieter now. Thomas, never let this place forget that respect is not a department. It is a daily choice. I will not, he said. You have my promise. Good, she said. Then you will not need my presence to remind you. He looked at her, curious. Are you leaving? For a while, she said. I built this place to stand on its own. Now, it finally can. They stood together for a moment, watching the light turn amber. Later, as evening approached, Elena walked alone down to the beach. The sand was cool beneath her feet, the tide soft against her ankles. The sky burned orange and pink, the kind of beauty that needed no witness. She stopped where the water met the shore, closed her eyes, and whispered, Grace always wins. Behind her, the resort lights flickered on one by one until the entire structure glowed against the fading day. Back in the lobby, guests began checking in for the night. On the front desk, the guest book remained open to the page she had written the day before. Legacy is not what you build. It is how you make people feel when they forget your title. A young woman paused to read it. She smiled, touched the page gently, and whispered, I know who she is. Out on the beach, Elena turned for one last look. The resort shimmered in the distance, alive with light and kindness. She took a breath, then walked toward the shoreline, where the waves welcomed her steps and erased them softly. No triumph, no grand finale. Just peace, the quiet kind that comes when justice does not need to shout. And as the sun slipped beneath the horizon, her voice seemed to linger in the wind, gentle, and certain. You do not have to prove power when you already live with purpose. Fade to black. Thank you for watching until the end. If this story moved you, take a second to support the channel. Subscribing is completely free, but it helps us grow and keep sharing stories that matter. Your engagement, your likes, your comments, your shares keeps this message of dignity and justice alive. Before you go, tell us where you are watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments below, and let's build a community that believes in respect, strength, and grace. Hit subscribe, stay inspired, and remember, every story you share helps someone see the world a little clearer. See you in the next video.